I'm just going to share some things about my mom, my experiences with her. As Kevin said, it's kind of hard to summarize everything. And I think of her 20 times a day, too. I always used to call her when I would, on my way to work or when I was leaving work, and I'd talk to her most every day, during the week often. But then in her last couple of months, her mornings were kind of tough, so I wouldn't call her in the morning, and I would call her in the evening. So now, when I'm in the car, no matter when it is I get in the car, before or after work, I think of her. But I'm just going to share a couple of things with you. I just want to thank you for being here for my mom. And there's such a joy to share with you about her, and I'm sure you're going to be nodding your heads. Yeah, that sounds like Jan. We've heard so many wonderful things about her. I may be repeating them, but I just want to start when we moved here to Simi from New York, and I started fifth grade in Simi, and that's where I came to know really most of you that are here. And it's where my mom developed so many wonderful relationships. We've heard about that, and that was back in the day when in Simi, my mom and all you friends and the ladies particularly, they were able to stay at home and raise their kids, and so there's a lot of time they would spend together becoming those great friends, and also our families as well, doing so many wonderful things together. And as a kid, what I remember is the barbecues and all summer long endless pool parties up at our house, and the feeding of the endless appetites of kids hungry from swimming with endless hot dogs and hamburgers, and very, very fun times and many, many wonderful relationships. Mom was very devoted to us kids. I'll jump ahead to high school, and like in the 3 years I went to Simi High, I don't think I ever remember walking home from Simi High more than I can count on one hand. There was three of us at Simi at one time, and we're all in sports, and Nancy was also as well in drill team, and I think my mom would make multiple trips back and forth to Simi High School to pick us all up. She didn't want us to walk home. And whatever we did, she was so devoted, her and my dad, to us. I left for the Army when I was when it was about 20 in Germany. And after I was there for about a year, it was very, very wonderful to have my mom and dad come over to visit me for a couple of weeks. And we traveled a lot. We attended the Oktoberfest and the Rhine River Cruise. And in southern Germany, we were at the Zugspitze, Germany's highest mountain, and we went to Paris and all kinds of tourist things. It was so great to have them visit. And in those early years, I wrote many letters from my time in basic training here in the U.S. and other places where I did training, and then over into Germany. And Mom kept all of those letters. And recently, when I was with her, she pointed me to one of her drawers, and that's where I found all these old letters dating back to the mid-'70s. And it was really neat because one evening I was able to sit down with her and open up some of those letters a couple of nights, really, and read them to Mom. And of course, it brought back all kinds of wonderful memories for us that we were talking about, and a trip down memory lane for me, and we both enjoyed it a lot. And not only were there my letters in that drawer, but there were letters from my brother Kevin and Nancy, all of them from the 70s, and but she kept so many things from us, and that's just the heart of a mother, right? And she kept many things from her friends as well. I left the military in December of '78, and for a while, after the military, I was going to Moore Park College, and I stayed at home for a little bit. Then I went away to college, Cal Poly Pomona, and then I remember taking a semester off, and I was at home for that time. So I was with my mom and dad sporadically after high school. But then much later, in my life, I had an opportunity to spend a few years with my mom while I was getting on a few things squared away in my life, and I needed some time to get situated. And that was when my mom lived up in the other end of Simi Valley, not where we grew up, at the east end. But I lived with her for a couple of years, and I had some great home cooking and care from my mom. And those were very, very precious years to me. And in moving there, I determined that I was just going to enjoy my mom and get to know her. Um, I came to care and appreciate her so much more than I did when I was younger, as is the experience of probably the vast majority of us when we finally get to realize we didn't know as much as we thought we were did when we were thinking about our parents. Mom cared very, very deeply, as you know, you've heard. She was a survivor, having been through some tough times, but she was always very, very resilient. I remember her quoting once the proverbial saying, "I felt sorry for myself because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet." And that's really how she lived her life. I rarely heard her complain about anything, even where there were some rough things that she was going through. She cared deeply about people in difficult circumstances. Whenever there were tragedies, she would always comment on how horrible the fires were, and she would feel so deeply for those people. You could hear it in her voice as she was talking about these tragedies, perhaps an earthquake somewhere in the world, or stories that were on TV she would watch about any tragedy going on, and she felt very deeply for them. And you could hear it. She cared. Mom wasn't very partial. She never really played any favorites, and whenever she gave something to, Sid said over the interment, when she would always be sticking something in your hands or hiding it in my car or something, money for gas or whatever. But she didn't play favorites. But that didn't stop me from saying to my mom, "I know that Kevin's your favorite." Um, and there's nothing that Mom did that would suggest that, but I just always thought it was true. And when I would kid with her about it, she would agree with me. And she finally agreed with me. Yeah, he is. I don't know if Kevin has any input on it, but he was the baby, so I'm sure there's some truth to that. But she didn't treat any of her kids any differently. Mom was very playful. Harleen had shared when she talked about my mom, just the fun times and the laughter that she had. But Mom had a thing where on the first day of the month, she would wish you a happy whatever month it happened to be. She'd want to call you first. It could be happy November or happy December. And I always wanted to beat her to the punch and say happy whatever month. But I got rarely able to do that. I always forgot, but she always remembered. I'm sure she did the same thing with you guys, Nancy and Kev, as well. And sometimes I knew she enjoyed it so much and I'd remember it, but I'd let her say it because I knew she got a kick out of it and she enjoyed it so much. And I'd say, "Mom, you got me again, drat." I just want to tell you a very quick story about just our messing around. My mom had a particular knife that she used to cut certain things, like a tomato knife, or it was just a very, very thin little blade. And I remember I'd say to her, "Mom, you know what? There's only one thing I want when you're not around anymore. I want that knife, and that's all I want." So we joked about whether or not she was going to give it to me, and we'd play around about that. But then there was another knife that she had, and it had a wide blade, and it was a spreader. Kim's laughing. It was a spreader, and so it had like a fat blade, and I just loved it. And it had a wooden handle. And so I said, "You know what, Mom? I don't want that. I don't want that thin knife anymore. I want that spreader. Okay, come on, I want that spreader." And she said, "No." She goes, Kevin wants that spreader." I go, "Kevin?" Here we go with the favorite thing again, right? And then I found out, and this went on every time I visited her, and we were eating together. And I found out from Kevin that he never said that he wanted the spreader, but she was just messing with me. It was a lot of fun. Another thing is a laughter that would be so much fun. Nancy and I, pretty much not Kevin, but Nancy and I and her, when we were together, we would just be sitting there, and one of us would just stop and look at the other one, or both people, and just with a deadpan look. And then the person would start laughing, like they'd look with a deadpan look back, and then they'd start laughing. And then we'd do all this fake laughter. Well, that turned into real laughter. And we would go back and forth, and Sid would shake his head at us, thought we were crazy, which we were. But she loved it. It was so much fun, and she would get a pain in her side from laughing. We'd all be laughing terribly, and it's really hard to stop. And then she'd get a pain in her side, and of course that made it harder to stop laughing, right? when somebody was hurting. But she was just like a lot of fun. I just want to reiterate two of the most special times that I've had with my mom that I will always treasure and remember. One of those times I told you above, when I was getting back on my feet, and I lived with her for a couple of years. And I talked about reading those letters to my mom. Well, those letters that I read to my mom was on Thanksgiving week of this year, the week before she died. And I just want to tell you how God blessed me with that time with her. The backstory is that sometime in advance of Thanksgiving this year, Nancy and Sid had determined to go away to Utah to be with their son and daughter-in-law and grandkids. And Mom was doing well when they made these plans. But as Thanksgiving approached, Mom had taken a little turn for the worse. And she was having a hard time, difficulty breathing at certain times, and she needed more care. So Nancy told me that if, and I said, hey, listen, I'm coming up. So I took the week off, and, Nancy had told me that they wouldn't have made the decision to go if they would have known this. But I had the opportunity to be with Mom. And of course she was protesting, saying she'd be okay, and she didn't want to bother, me to bother with her. She always said that. Whenever you made effort for my mom, it's like, no, don't do that. But Mom, I want to do it. So, but that whole week together with my mom, an entire week with her of Mom's life, and it was an absolute joy to do everything for her. It really was. Kevin came up for Thanksgiving. We had a very, very nice time together, but it was such an unbelievable privilege for me to be able to be with her from early morning until late at night when I went to up to Nan and Sid's and spent the night there. We'd have breakfast in the early morning, coffee, pastry, toast together. And my fondest memories of her is when I had the chance just to be with her. It was just great. So I miss my mother terribly because she was a wonderful mom, and she was a great friend to so many of you. And God has blessed me with her. Thank you.
Just to show you, to prove to you that I'm not her favorite son, I don't ever remember getting a ride home from high school. Not once.
Well, you were 2.5 years behind us all, so they were tired of it.
Although Jeff talks about Thanksgiving, and that was on a Thursday. My mom passed 5 days later on Tuesday. And when I went up on Thanksgiving, I could tell that she was not doing well. I certainly couldn't have told you that by Tuesday she would be gone. But just to show you how, right till the very end, she still was very much herself. So the three of us, it's on Thanksgiving night, and we're sitting around, and Jeff is resurrecting this conversation about who's going to get what. And in the past few months, my mom has been saying, sometimes I would get a text from her saying, hey, do you want this piece of art, or do you want this, or do you want that? And I generally would tell her no. There was nothing that I really wanted. So we were sitting around, and Jeff was saying, and this kind of goes to my mom's state of mind, even though she was not feeling well, and she probably didn't let on to us at the time how bad she was feeling. But Jeff would say, hey, that ski monkey that I gave you a long time ago? I really want that. And she would look over at me and wink, and without me even knowing, and she would say, oh, I already promised that to Kevin. And Jeff did about 3 or 4 items that he wanted, and every one of them were promised to me. So I don't know, maybe I was a favorite son, I'm not sure. Although, just to let you know, I didn't get any of those things. Although I would like the spreader and the tomato knife. All right. Just before I may forget this, so I want to say this. This ceremony today is being recorded, and in just a few minutes here, we're going to watch a presentation that my brother-in-law Sid put together, and we want to give him a big thank you for that because it was a lot of work. Although this was it was either the day after my mom died. My sister, my brother, and I sat down in my mom's house and for hours went through photos for this presentation specifically. Plus, we started pulling out photos for ourselves. And the really funny thing about that is for years, I would say to my mom when I would go up and visit her, my mom had shoeboxes full of pictures. And she also, as turns out, had envelopes upon envelopes of just negatives. And so I would say to her, Mom, let's go through the pictures and start sorting them because we're going to have to do that eventually. And she would always turn me down. She never wanted to do it. And I finally figured out why. She's probably figuring to herself, this is way too much work. I'll just let you guys take care of it after I'm gone. And so eventually she got her way. And so the day after she had passed, we were sitting down in her house going through the pictures, which make up the slide presentation that Sid has put together. The ceremony and the slide presentation are going to, they're going to be online. And so we will send you all a link to where you can go to view them if you would like in a few days. Okay? So kind of be on the lookout for that.